give a recap of our discussions yesterday. But before we do that, we've got two messages of support that we would like to present to plenary today, and in the presence of the presidents of the liberation movements. It will be Comrade Liu Jingchao, Minister of International Relations Department of the Communist Party of China. Comrade Liu will present a message direct from the General Secretary of the Communist Party of China, Comrade Xi Jinping. Comrade Liu, can you please come forward to present the message of support?
Your Excellency, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, President of ANC, Your Excellency, Comrade Nandi-Ndaitwah, President of the Chapo Party of Namibia, Your Excellency, Comrade Daniel Chapo, President of Frelimo of Mozambique, Your Excellency, Comrade Emerson Mnangagwa, President of the First Secretary of ZANU-PF, Your Excellencies, former presidents, comrades and leaders from political parties of friendly countries, comrades, friends, brothers and sisters. To start, I would like to convey to the leaders and comrades of our 6 sister parties and cordial greetings and best wishes from Comrade General Secretary Xi Jinping and the 100 million members of the Communist Party of China, to all of you. Building a better Africa is building a modernized Africa. Africa is home to the largest number of developing countries. Without Africa's modernization, there can be no worldwide modernization. Many generations of African people have engaged in arduous exploration. Your forefathers led the brave and resilient African people out of the long dark night of colonialism and achieved national liberation. 31 years ago, in 1994, as a UN observer, I had the privilege of witnessing the first non-racial democratic election in South Africa. I was deeply touched by the relentless pursuit of the black South African people for racial equality. After independence, leaders across African countries focused on achieving economic liberation and the revival of civilizations, taking yet another step towards modernization. We are heartened to see that once forgotten continent of Africa has transformed into a land of vitality and robust growth, becoming an important political, economic, and cultural pole of the world. As Comrade Nelson Mandela put it, we stand at the dawn of an African century. China has traveled a long and difficult path towards modernization. Under the CPC leadership, what was once an impoverished agricultural nation has now become the second largest economy in the world. To realize modernization, it is essential to have a strong political leadership able to lead and unite. There must be a correct direction, sensible goals, and the hard work of the entire people. China's modernization would not have been possible without the strong leadership of the Communist Party of China. The long-term governance of the CPC keeps Chinese modernization on track, avoiding policy fluctuations and flip-flops. Under the CPC's leadership, generations of the Chinese people have forged ahead, turning the grand blueprint into reality. To realize modernization, it is essential to continuously meet people's aspirations for a better life. The ultimate goal of modernization is the free and well-rounded development of the individuals. Some developing countries came close to join the rank of developed nations, but only to fall into the middle income trap. Guided by the vision of common prosperity, China has put in place institutional arrangements and policy measures that prevent polarization and ensure fair benefits for all. To realize modernization, it is essential to draw from the wisdom and strength of our own culture. Cutting off from our civilization would mean losing our identity. China's modernization drive is deeply rooted in the 5,000-year-old civilization. Our time-honored values, such as pursuing the common good for all the people being the foundation of state, have inspired us to come up with solutions to meet modern challenges. And to realize modernization, it is essential to follow the path of peaceful development. As an ancient Chinese saying goes, one accomplishes oneself by helping others succeed. China strives to support Africa and our fellow developing countries, and in the face of rising protectionism, hegemonism, China has continued to open up further and share development opportunities with the rest of the world. Your Excellencies, comrades and friends, China's modernization proves that modernization does not equal Westernization. There are diversified paths to modernizations. China will support Africa exploring paths to modernization suited to your national conditions, rooted in your cultures, tailored to your needs, and empowered by your technologies. China will support Africa in cultivating the drivers of modernization, namely green, balanced, and sustainable industrialization, agricultural modernization, and a skilled workforce to turn rich resources and the demographic dividend into true growth engines. And China will support Africa in revitalizing African civilizations and drawing strength from its splendid civilization on the path to modernization. As Comrade Nelson Mandela once said, the African rebirth is now more than an idea. Africa will embrace true liberation and full revitalization in this century. China will join hands with Africa on the path towards civilization for a better common future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Comrade Liu. I'll call the DSG of the ANC, Comrade Nomvula Mgonyani, to read the message from the Communist Party of Russia.
Thank you very much, Comrade Secretary General of the ANC. Dear leaders of the liberation movements of Southern Africa, dear comrades and friends, I welcome the participants of your extremely important forum on behalf of the millions of Russian communists and their supporters. 31 years ago, with the end of apartheid regime in South Africa, the heroic struggle of the peoples of Southern Africa ended in complete victory. The liberation movements of Angola, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Namibia, and South Africa, with the support of the frontline countries of Tanzania, Zambia, and Botswana, as well as the entire progressive world community, eliminated the last hotbed of colonialism on the planet. We are proud that the Soviet Union, led by the Communist Party, had made a significant contribution to the support of the liberation struggle. Thousands of activists of your movements have received training in military schools and universities of the then Soviet Union. Our military officers worked in liberation movement camps in Africa. Soviet diplomats defended your just interests at the United Nations. We provided this support despite the fact that the West was trying to brand you as terrorists. Today, political power belongs to democratic governments that reflect the interests of the people. However, the former colonialists retained significant control over the economies of your countries. The ugly economic structure created during the times of colonialism and apartheid was designed to serve the exclusive interests of Western countries. This difficult legacy is still blocking the development of your countries, hindering the improvement of the living standards of the population, sharpening the problems of unemployment and crime. Overcoming the economic legacy of colonialism and apartheid requires particularly vigorous efforts. We know that the forces of imperialism have not accepted defeat. They are stubbornly seeking revenge. Crude methods of political and economic blackmail are used for this purpose. Western countries are trying to manipulate the election and vote counting processes in order to remove progressive governments from power. Millions of dollars are being pumped into supporting the pro-Western opposition. They use their control over the media to destabilize the situation in your countries. Today, the West, represented by the United States, seeks to eliminate even weak compensation mechanisms for neocolonial robbery. I am referring to President Trump's imposition of 30% duties on goods imported from South Africa to the United States and the de facto elimination of the system of preferences for African exports to America. We strongly condemn these new forms and methods of colonialism. We are convinced that your struggle to eliminate the consequences of colonialism and apartheid is a continuation of the struggle for independence. The peoples of Southern Africa can always fully count on the solidarity of the Russian communists in the struggle against all forms of imperialism. We know that the Russian leadership is also determined to develop political, economic, and cultural ties with countries of your region. Africa has a long-standing and reliable friend in Russia. We once again welcome the participants of the summit and express our firm confidence that the results of your forum's work and decisions will be an important step towards overcoming the consequences of colonialism. They will open up new ways to achieve the true goals of the liberation movements, ensuring the well-being and prosperity of your people. Thank you very much.
Comrade Secretary General and President and former President Mbeki and delegates. Yesterday, our discussions were robust, and there was a great amount of introspection and taking stock of the state of our movements, our countries, region, and continent. We wish to take this opportunity to recap some of the highlights of yesterday. Yesterday was not simply a continuation of deliberation. It was a moment of reckoning, of renewal, and of recommitment. It was the day we translated memory into momentum and history into action. In our report as the chairperson of the Secretariat, we reaffirmed the historic and political responsibility that binds our movements. We attempted, Comrade Presidents, to present a sobering assessment of the state of our movements. We reflected on the balance of forces, our enduring strengths, and the mounting challenges we face. In doing so, we outlined three urgent strategic imperatives: defending and consolidating the gains of our liberation, which are under threat from internal erosion and external manipulation and interference; confronting the reassertion of imperialism, neocolonialism, and geopolitical subversion; in all its guises, be it through foreign-funded NGOs, media warfare, economic coercion and bullying, extractive financial systems, among others. Charting a radical new path of socio-economic transformation driven by grassroots mobilization, regional integration, and people-centered development. Yesterday, we acknowledged that while our movements in government have made progress in many respects, there are also many challenges, internal weaknesses, and threats. Equally so, we acknowledged that within the context of the geopolitical landscape, we are at a critical juncture. The next phase of our liberation is not merely about holding state power. It is about transforming that power into a force for justice, dignity, equality, and advancing Pan-African renewal and progressive internationalism. At the same time, our movements, while still dominant political forces in our countries, are no longer immune to decline. The credibility gap, governance failures, corruption, internal factionalism, generational disconnect, and complacency were all confronted with brutal honesty. Yet this reckoning was not an exercise in despair. It was a clarion call to action. For the true measure of a revolutionary movement lies not only its perfection, but in its capacity for self-correction and renewal. Following the Secretariat report, we had deeply moving and politically charged presentations from our Youth League, Women's League, and Veterans League. Their voices were not auxiliary, they were central. The Youth League address was a rallying cry for the generational inclusion. The representative of the liberation movement's youth leagues did not mince their words. They reminded us that the youth are not simply tomorrow's leaders, they are today's disruptors, agitators, innovators, and defenders of our legacy. The youth leagues and youth wings address reminded us that young people are not merely heirs to our legacy, they are architects of its next chapter. All three leagues or wings exposed the crisis of youth unemployment, digital exclusion and marginalization from the state, economy, and party structures. In particular, the youth leagues and youth wings demands were clear: a regional youth development fund, quotas for youth leadership, and the digitization of political education schools, grounded in institutions such as the O.R. Tambo School and the Julius Nyerere School. The Women's League address was equally powerful and uncompromising. They painted a bold picture of the patriarchal undercurrents still entrenched within our societies and movements. The Women's Leagues laid bare the enduring structural patriarchy that continues to deny women economic agency, land rights, and bodily autonomy. The Women's Leagues spoke to the systemic marginalization of women in governance, land ownership, and economic opportunity, despite the fact that women formed the backbone of our liberation struggles. The League proposed resolutions to advance reproductive rights, equal pay and protection from gender-based violence and femicide, as well as policies to ensure economic inclusion access to land, among others. Their demands also included reproductive justice, gender-responsive budgeting, land reform for women, and the institutionalization of gender parity in all our policies. The Veterans League, with moral and ethical clarity and historical authority, spoke on the urgent need to dignify veterans through economic inclusion, housing, health, and social programs. They proposed the creation of a regional association of veterans and their integral involvement in political education and youth mentorship. In the closed session, we moved from diagnosis to coordination. Our representatives of the ANC, SWAPO, MPLR, CCM, ZANU-PF, and FRELIMO engaged in a robust discussion about the internal weaknesses of our movements: patronage, ideological drift, disconnection from the masses, and the collapse of cadre discipline. We emerged united on several key principles, which will be codified into the summit declaration and program of action, among others. This includes, firstly, regional unity and sovereignty. We reaffirmed that our destinies are bound together. We reject all forms of foreign interference, neo-colonialism, and digital imperialism, and assert our collective right to shape our development on African terms. Secondly, economic emancipation. We recommitted to transitioning from fragmented, extractive economies to inclusive, people-driven economies that foreground land reform, agrarian justice, beneficiation, and industrialization. The struggle for economic sovereignty is the final frontier of our liberation. Thirdly, continental integration. We declared our full backing for the Africa Free Trade Agreement and committed to deepening our role in regional and continental value chains, infrastructure development, and free movement. Fourthly, climate justice. We demanded justice from the global north and reasserted the call for climate financing, technology transfer, and reparations for loss and damage. Africa's people must not carry the cost of others' emissions. Fifthly, women's empowerment. We adopted the full recommendations of the sectoral leaks, ensuring women are not merely accommodated but centered in development, innovation, science, leadership, and culture. Sixthly, youth empowerment. As with women empowerment, we must pursue the recommendation made by our movements of young people. A Liberation Movement's Youth Festival was proposed to advance advocacy and moral renewal. Seventh, veterans and legacy preservation. We resolved to institutionalize the veterans' roles in national development and to preserve the roots of our liberation struggle, transforming them into historical, educational, and tourism projects that empower local communities. Eighth, global solidarity and progressive internationalism. We stand in an unwavering solidarity with the people of Palestine, Cuba, Western Sahara, and Sudan against unilateral sanctions and imperial occupation. We reaffirmed our dedication to a multipolar world, democratized global governance, and strengthening of multilateralism. Ninth, support for South Africa's G20 presidency. We pledged to leverage this role to advocate for debt relief, fairer development finance, and the fight against illicit financial flows, corruption, and capital flight. BRICS and G20 must serve Africa's developmental goals, not repeat colonial trade patterns. In two pivotal panel discussions, the summit delved deeper into praxis. Panel 1, led by the ANC, featuring Frelimo, ZANU-PF, and Fatah, explored the tools of neo-imperial control, debt diplomacy, foreign propaganda, and illicit extraction. We left with a mandate to build independent ideological capacity. Panel 2, under CCM stewardship, addressed regional development. It called for youth employment strategies, women's economic inclusion, and frameworks for cross-border collaboration on energy, migration, and trade. The call to action from declaration to implementation culminated in the near completion of our summit declaration on day 2, a revolutionary people-centered blueprint for the next phase of our struggle. Key commitments include strengthening our party political schools and convening regular conferences of secretaries general, institutionalizing sector-based gatherings, women, youth, and our veterans, mainstreaming accountability and internal introspection to confront complacency and fragmentation. We declared that we will no longer accept symbolic liberation. Our people want jobs, they want justice, they want dignity. We must build a region of peace, sovereignty, and prosperity where the dreams of Tambo, Machel, Nuyoma, Mugabe, Dos Santos, and Nyerere live on, not as memory, but as mandate. As our presidents join us today for day 3, let us rise to meet history's call, not as 6 movements, but as a unified revolutionary force, marching under the banner of African dignity, freedom, and justice. Aluta. Aluta. That is the recap, comrades. Thank you very much. We are done now with the recap and messages of support that were outstanding. Now we are going to invite the presidents to deliver their interventions, and we will call you to the stage, comrade presidents. Once you are done speaking, you will sit on the podium, and then there will be a Q&A engagement with you at a later stage. I will outline the details of what is going to happen as I continue to chair this important meeting of the liberation movements. So, comrades, the first president I'm going to call to give us an address, Your Excellency. It now gives me an honor, comrades, to call to the podium the President of Frelimo and the Republic of Mozambique, Comrade Daniel Chapo. A former governor, as the Secretary General of Frelimo mentioned yesterday, President Chapo is the first Mozambican president to be born after independence. And is the youngest president we have. President Chapo looks older, but I'm older than him. And when I met him here in South Africa when he was campaigning, I said, President, you are dancing a lot. He said, this dance will return us back to power. But thank you, President, with your energy. The floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much. I would like to make my speech in Portuguese or in English, but you know that my official language is Portuguese. That's why I will make it in Portuguese. But I think that we have translator. Camarada Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, presidente do ANC e presidente da República da África do Sul, camarada Emerson Dambuzo Mnangagwa, presidente da ZANU-PF e presidente da República do Zimbábue, camarada Nentumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, presidente da SWAP e presidente da República da Namíbia, camarada Mara Kiosa, vice-presidente do MPLA, camaradas secretários-gerais dos nossos partidos ANC, Chama Pinduzi, MPLA, SOAPO, ZANU-PF e Frelimo, camaradas membros da liderança dos partidos irmãos aqui presentes, distintos membros do corpo diplomático aqui presentes, caros camaradas. Apraz-nos iniciar esta nossa intervenção, expressando em nome da liderança dos mais de 6 milhões de membros da Frelimo e dos moçambicanos, as mais calorosas saudações aos camaradas e irmãos, líderes dos partidos movimentos de libertação de África Austral, reunidos aqui em Gauteng, África do Sul, nesta cimeira cujo lema é defender as conquistas da libertação, promover o desenvolvimento socioeconômico integrado e fortalecer a solidariedade para uma África melhor. Dirigimos uma palavra especial de apreço ao camarada Cyril Ramaphosa, ao secretário Fikile Mbalule e à direção do ANC, por organizar esta importante cimeira e por nos terem convidado para podermos partilhar experiências com os nossos camaradas de partidos irmãos da África Austral. Esta cimeira realiza-se num contexto particularmente marcante da história compartilhada dos povos da África Austral. Um movimento em que celebramos décadas de independências dos nossos países, conquistadas com sacrifícios e sangue dos melhores filhos que ousaram lutar contra a opressão, a dominação e a exploração do homem pelo homem, a que os nossos povos estiveram sujeitos durante séculos. Lutas essas que custaram altos sacrifícios dos melhores filhos nacionalistas que fundaram e lideraram os movimentos de libertação da região e cujo legado hoje celebramos. Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, líder do Chama Pinduzi da Tanzânia, Agostinho Neto, do MPLA em Angola, Robert Mugabe, da ZANU-PF no Zimbábue, San Joma, da SOAP na Namíbia, Nelson Mandela e Oliver Tambo, do ANC aqui na África do Sul, Eduardo Mondlane e Samora Machel, da Frelimo, no nosso país, Moçambique. Queremos, por isso, aproveitar esta ocasião para, em nome da Frelimo e do povo moçambicano, reiterar nossos sinceros agradecimentos aos líderes dos partidos irmãos que nos honraram com a sua presença ou através dos seus altos representantes nas celebrações dos 50 anos da independência nacional de Moçambique, no passado dia 25 de junho, em Maputo. Em especial, reiteramos a mensagem da nossa convidada de honra, camarada Samia Suluhu Hassan, presidente da Chama Pinduzi e presidente da República da Tanzânia, que na sua mensagem exaltou o percurso comum das lutas de libertação dos povos da África Austral que estamos aqui hoje reunidos. Por isso, esta cimeira é, acima de tudo, um tributo aos nossos líderes fundadores pelas lutas que travaram por uma África Austral mais unida e solidária. Lutas que nós, os líderes de hoje, temos a responsabilidade de continuar com determinação, coragem e sentido patriótico em defesa das conquistas dos nossos Estados e povos. Respeitados líderes, caros camaradas, hoje não é necessário fazer grandes pesquisas científicas para entendermos que vivemos na África Austral um momento desafiante para os partidos libertadores. Com crescente intensidade, as forças imperialistas e neocolonialistas hostis à liberdade e à soberania têm vindo a investir numa estratégia total visando tirar do poder e acabar com os partidos libertadores. Não se trata de uma estratégia nova, é a continuidade da estratégia total concebida e implantada pelo apartheid contra os países da linha da frente na década de 1980. Uma estratégia de desestabilização que visava travar nossa solidariedade para com as lutas pelas independências do Zimbábue, da Namíbia e da África do Sul. Na atual fase, as forças imperialistas e neocolonialistas continuam a usar a mesma estratégia, ainda com métodos diferentes, em especial através da subversão do verdadeiro sentido de democracia multipartidária. De forma crescente, assistimos à intensificação do apoio a grupos chauvinistas da extrema-direita, que recorrem às redes sociais, à inteligência artificial, entre outras plataformas, para difundir a desinformação através de discursos populistas, de ódio e desqualificação das realizações dos nossos governos e das conquistas dos nossos povos. Está cada vez mais claro que o seu principal objetivo é usar as eleições para forçar o tão propalado regime change, mesmo contra a vontade popular. A sua tática consiste em tentar separar o povo dos nossos partidos, para fragilizar os nossos partidos e colocar no poder governos fantoches e empobrecer continuamente os nossos povos. Assim, eles acreditam que poderão facilmente dilapidar os nossos recursos estratégicos, como os minerais críticos, a terra, os hidrocarbonetos, os recursos minerais e florestais, sem benefícios para os nossos Estados e povos. As consequências desta nova estratégia imperialista são preocupantes. Depois do colapso da UNIP, o partido de Kenneth Kaunda, sentimos agora sinais de muita pressão sobre os nossos 6 partidos libertadores. Perante esta pressão, precisamos de unir forças para reforçarmos a posição de liderança dos nossos partidos. Tal como no período da linha da frente, precisamos nos unirmos mais como um único bloco para enfrentarmos a ameaça que paira sobre os nossos partidos libertadores. Num artigo publicado em junho do ano passado, no jornal de Namíbia, o analista Ndumba Makwanira, ao comentar os resultados eleitorais que tiveram lugar aqui na África do Sul, afirmou que os dias dos antigos movimentos libertadores governarem na África Austral estão a chegar ao fim. E concluiu dizendo que aquilo que aconteceu com a ANC é um sério aviso a todos os partidos libertadores. De facto, esta pressão está a acontecer em todos os nossos países, irmãos, e tentam-se encobrir as manobras com fatores como a mudança de pirâmide etária em que a nossa população é maioritariamente jovem. É certo que o nosso eleitorado é dominado por uma juventude que não viveu a crueldade do colonialismo e do apartheid. Uma juventude que se torna vulnerável, sobretudo devido às dificuldades decorrentes da falta de emprego e outras oportunidades. De igual modo, também é um facto que a prevalência da pobreza, sobretudo nas zonas rurais e suburbanas, também coloca sérios desafios aos nossos partidos nos momentos eleitorais. No entanto, todas estas situações não podem explicar o ambiente de agitação e instabilidade política que vivemos, protagonizado por partidos emergentes com discursos populistas e radicais típicos da extrema-direita. Caros líderes, distintos camaradas, é verdade que há vários fatores conjunturais que afetam o desempenho dos nossos partidos. No entanto, independentemente dos fatores que possam ser invocados para caracterizar a atual situação, nós entendemos que os grandes desafios estão dentro dos nossos próprios partidos. Aquilo a que nós chamaríamos de questão interna. A questão interna dos nossos partidos caracteriza, sobretudo, pelos conflitos internos entre camaradas, por vezes entre quadros de direção dos nossos partidos. Por um lado, estes conflitos acabam criando divisões, desunião e graves problemas de disciplina interna nos nossos partidos. Camaradas são forçados a renunciar para outros partidos e até a formar os seus próprios partidos. Outros, mesmo permanecendo no partido, tomam posicionamentos críticos fora dos órgãos, por vezes quebrando o sigilo de questões estratégicas dos nossos partidos. Na verdade, a questão interna tem fragilizado o desempenho dos nossos partidos, em particular nos momentos eleitorais, uma vez que, perante os nossos conflitos internos, projeta-se para a sociedade uma imagem negativa do partido e dos seus dirigentes, afugentando membros, simpatizantes e potenciais eleitores. Por outro lado, a questão interna desvia a atenção do partido e do nosso governo das questões centrais do desenvolvimento dos nossos países e dos nossos povos para a melhoria contínua das condições de vida dos nossos povos. Naturalmente, que os partidos da oposição e os interesses que os apoiam não perdem tempo em fazer o aproveitamento dos conflitos internos para tirar dividendos políticos e reinarem. Por isso, é urgente para os nossos partidos traçarmos estratégias e multiplicar ações, visando reverter o avanço dos partidos da oposição e, sobretudo, da extrema-direita. Mas, para conseguirmos isso, precisamos de fortalecer a coesão e a união interna dentro dos nossos partidos e entre os nossos partidos na região. Podemos ter diferenças, podemos ter pontos de vista diferentes e divergentes, mas não devemos nunca atingir um nível de contradições antagônicas. Ou seja, temos de ser capazes de resolver as nossas divergências dentro do marco dos nossos partidos e dentro dos órgãos do nosso partido. A nossa experiência na Frelimo é peculiar. Atualmente, nós contamos com 3 antigos presidentes ainda vivos do Partido e da República. O presidente Joaquim Chissano, o presidente Armando Emílio Guebuza, o presidente Filipe Jacinto Nunes e o presidente em exercício, por sinal um jovem da geração que nasceu depois da independência. Mas para nós, esta situação é uma bênção. Permite-nos trocar pontos de vista de forma permanente sobre as questões vitais do partido e da governação. É natural que no meio do processo tenhamos diferenças de pontos de vista, mas a simbiose dessas diferenças resulta em síntese que enriquece as opções estratégicas do nosso partido e do nosso governo. Mas para que isso aconteça, é fundamental que focalizemos na causa comum e nos princípios que têm guiado os nossos partidos desde a sua fundação e nas fases cruciais das lutas pelas nossas independências. Nós estamos convencidos de que, apesar das manobras das forças imperialistas e neocolonialistas, o nosso povo ainda acredita na justeza da nossa causa, que nos levou a lutar contra o colonialismo e contra o apartheid. Nós acreditamos que o povo compreende as manobras do inimigo e tem certeza de que somente nós, os partidos libertadores, somos verdadeiros defensores das mais legítimas aspirações do povo, pelas quais lutamos contra os regimes coloniais e contra o apartheid. Distintos líderes, caros camaradas, Para além da questão interna, os nossos partidos irmãos precisam de reforçar a solidariedade e o apoio que sempre nos caracterizou em todas as fases da luta pelas nossas independências e durante a linha da frente que a Frelimo, Moçambique, através do saudoso presidente Samora Moisés Machel, liderou a linha da frente para a liberdade do povo zimbabuano, do povo sul-africano e do povo namibiano. Devemos continuar a estender a nossa solidariedade, não só a nível da região, mas também com os povos que continuam a ser oprimidos, como na Palestina, no Saara Ocidental, entre outros. Como princípio fundamental dos nossos partidos, devemos nos posicionar contra as injustiças e guerras que ceifam vidas inocentes, como na Ucrânia, na Palestina e outros cantos do mundo. Saudamos os nossos secretários-gerais, que se têm reunido com regularidade para discutir matérias de interesse comum, especialmente no âmbito da formação de quadros. As escolas de liderança Mwalimu Julius Nyerere, em Kibaha, na Tanzânia, é um projeto estratégico que desenvolvemos em parceria com o Partido Comunista da China, partido amigo que esteve sempre conosco desde o período das lutas pelas nossas independências. Por isso, queremos aproveitar neste momento, agradecer ao camarada Xi Jinping por ter enviado aqui a delegação para estar presente nesta grande reunião. É uma escola que devemos colocar nas prioridades como centro de excelência na formação estratégica dos nossos quadros de liderança superior e intermédia, assim como quadros das organizações sociais, nomeadamente veteranos da luta de libertação nacional, mulheres e jovens. Saudamos o grande trabalho que tem sido realizado pelos secretários-gerais na concretização do projeto da Escola de Liderança e saudamos a presidente Samia, que fez a inauguração oficial da escola em representação dos líderes dos outros 5 partidos irmãos. Caros líderes, prezados camaradas, antes de terminar, reafirmamos o compromisso da Frelimo em fazer desta cimeira uma plataforma válida para a concertação de respostas e ações coordenadas a nível regional face aos desafios políticos, econômicos e sociais que enfrentamos no atual contexto da agenda global. Os nossos partidos são depositários de uma riquíssima experiência prática na condução dos destinos das nossas nações. É fundamental refletirmos sobre as vicissitudes do passado, assumirmos as nossas insuficiências, adaptarmos-nos à nova era digital e garantir que os partidos libertadores continuem a ser a referência e a esperança concreta dos nossos povos. A promoção de um ambiente de estabilidade e harmonia na nossa região exige a aplicação plena dos marcos legais em vigor. Exige também uma ação decidida no combate aos males que ameaçam a unidade interna dos nossos partidos e minam a confiança do nosso povo, com destaque para a corrupção, o nepotismo, o clientelismo e outras manifestações da má governação. Como partidos libertadores, devemos orgulhar das nossas conquistas até aqui alcançadas e, ao mesmo tempo, encontrar formas de aproveitar plenamente o nosso potencial regional. Precisamos de celebrar e de elaborar estratégias conjuntas que nos posicionem de forma vantajosa nas parcerias internacionais, atraindo mais investimentos que contribuam para uma verdadeira integração regional com impacto direto do bem-estar socioeconômico das nossas populações. Para concluir, expresso a total disponibilidade da Frelimo em materializar os compromissos da Declaração de Joanesburgo, na convicção de que esta cimeira seja um marco histórico na consolidação das nossas relações de cooperação e amizade. Que esta cimeira se realize no calendário estabelecido e sempre que se mostrar necessário, como acontecia com os nossos líderes fundadores no tempo da linha da frente, possamos nos encontrar. Viva a unidade da libertação de África Austral, viva a cooperação revolucionária, panafricanismo. A luta continua. 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 Thanks so much. Obrigado.
Thank you very much, Comrade President Chapo. Comrades, they are designated heads of delegations which will address us on behalf of their leaders who are not present here today. We are the head of delegation from MPLR has requested that given the time of a flight, she be allowed to render the message of President Lourenco. And we are going to call upon Comrade Mara Baptista, Deputy President of MPLR and Head of Delegation, to the podium. Comrade Mara.
Muito obrigada. Camarada Cyril Ramaphosa, presidente do ANC, excelências líderes e delegados dos partidos irmãos aqui presentes, distintos convidados, minhas senhoras e meus senhores. Gostaria de iniciar a nossa intervenção endereçando as calorosas e fraternais saudações do camarada João Lourenço, presidente do MPLA, a quem tenho a elevada honra de representar nesta importante cimeira. Endereçamos igualmente um abraço fraterno a todos os líderes e delegações aqui presentes e, de modo particular, Sua Excelência Presidente Cyril Ramaphosa, enquanto nosso anfitrião. Saúdo com profundo sentimento patriótico a realização desta cimeira dos movimentos de libertação da África Austral, que se realiza sobre o lema defender as conquistas da independência, promover o desenvolvimento socioeconômico integrado e fortalecer a solidariedade para uma África melhor. Estimados líderes, caros camaradas, a realização da presente cimeira reveste-se de particular importância e de um simbolismo imensurável, pois se realiza no momento em que os nossos respectivos povos e nações enfrentam novos e complexos desafios que exigem concertação, articulação, comunicação e, sobretudo, solidariedade entre os nossos partidos irmãos e povos. Há um rico provérbio africano que diz: se quer ir rápido, vá sozinho. Se quer ir longe, vamos juntos. Este provérbio sublinha bem a importância da colaboração e do trabalho em equipa, pois a verdadeira sustentabilidade e sucesso a longo prazo requerem apoio mútuo e cooperação. E o exemplo prático disto está enraizado no nosso percurso histórico de luta para as independências dos nossos países, que exigiu esforços conjugados e ajuda entre os nossos partidos e povos. Por tal fato, a nossa presença aqui reafirma o profundo compromisso do MPLA com os princípios que sempre nortearam a nossa luta pela liberdade, pela unidade nacional e pelo desenvolvimento dos nossos países. Excelências, estimados camaradas, o MPLA entende que o lema desta cimeira é um apelo à consciência coletiva dos nossos respectivos partidos e povos e antigos movimentos de libertação, pois temos ciência de que a nossa luta não terminou com a bandeira nacional erguida nos mastros das capitais dos nossos países. Ela continua, agora no combate contra a pobreza, contra as desigualdades sociais e contra as forças externas que procuram subverter a soberania dos nossos Estados. O nosso legado é vasto e inquestionável. Juntos, os movimentos de libertação definiram o destino da África, conquistaram a sua independência, desmantelaram sistemas opressivos e inspiraram gerações inteiras a acreditarem num futuro de justiça social e dignidade. Hoje, porém, somos chamados a uma nova etapa desta mesma luta, a luta pela preservação destas conquistas face às ameaças contemporâneas e garantir que os frutos da liberdade alcancem todos os nossos cidadãos. Caros camaradas, é comum reconhecer-se que o mundo mudou e continua a mudar rapidamente. Vivemos em sociedades em constantes transformações, com elevadas exigências na arena política, com pressões económicas, sociais e ambientais e um escrutínio cada vez maior por parte dos cidadãos, da sociedade civil e da comunidade internacional. Estes fenómenos demandam maior concentração e concertação política e económica para juntos enfrentarmos os desafios comuns que devem estar devidamente catalogados para uma ação direcionada e incisiva das lideranças. Neste sentido, devemos destacar a nossa maior atenção para a necessidade de reafirmação da confiança dos cidadãos nos ideais que nos norteiam, sobretudo junto das camadas mais jovens, mais críticas e mais exigentes no contexto atual. Continuar a valorizar os nossos quadros, ouvir as bases, formar os militantes e garantir que a máquina organizativa dos nossos partidos estejam em permanente prontidão e coesão. Partilhar experiências com outras formações políticas irmãs. Avaliar criticamente o nosso desempenho. Identificar fragilidades e definir soluções eficazes. O êxito da nossa ação política dependerá da nossa capacidade de debater com franqueza, planear com rigor e executar com disciplina. Aprimorar a nossa ação política, melhorar a nossa inserção na sociedade, estarmos nas bases, nas comunidades, trabalhar com o povo e para o povo com responsabilidade e diálogo. O MPLA considera que as demandas internas e externas representam desafios que apenas os poderemos vencer com coragem para inovar e para reformar, sem nunca abdicar dos princípios e valores que nos unem, divisas que, por sinal, inspiram o lema desta cimeira. Razão bastante para que compreendamos hoje a necessidade de estratégias comuns que salvaguardem o interesse maior que sempre esteve na vanguarda da nossa existência e da nossa luta. Enquanto ex-movimentos de libertação, cabe-nos liderar com coragem as transformações econômicas e sociais reclamadas pelos nossos contextos locais. Somos chamados a provar todos os dias a nossa eficiência e resiliência perante sociedades cada vez mais informadas e exigentes. Impõe-se, por isso, o reforçar da solidariedade entre os nossos povos e manter viva a chama dos ideais panafricanistas e anti-imperialistas, legados pelos nossos respectivos pais fundadores. Excelências, nos últimos anos, sob a liderança e visão estratégica do nosso líder, o camarada presidente João Lourenço, o MPLA reafirmou-se internamente com uma agenda de renovação da vida política nacional, assente na moralização da sociedade e no reforço da eficiência das instituições do Estado, na melhoria das desigualdades sociais e econômicas, promovendo uma governação cada vez mais próxima e inclusiva, mesmo em um contexto de enormes adversidades econômicas, resultantes de fatores como a nova ordem geopolítica e comercial que o mundo enfrenta, a queda do preço do petróleo e de outros embates externos. Sabemos que modernizar um partido histórico, torná-lo mais próximo do povo e, simultaneamente, liderar reformas profundas no Estado exige coragem política, pedagogia permanente e uma visão clara do interesse nacional acima de interesses particulares. Nesta ordem de ideias, e considerando a atual demografia dos nossos respectivos países, marcada essencialmente por uma população maioritariamente jovem, permitam-nos apontar algumas linhas que o MPLA considera importantes de serem observadas para a reformulação de uma estratégia política comum entre os nossos respectivos partidos, onde incluímos o reforço da comunicação política e da pauta cívica, que permita maior aproximação dos nossos partidos às respectivas bases sociais e responder de forma clara às suas inquietações. Maior investimento no capital humano e na formação político-partidária, para que os nossos quadros estejam cada vez mais preparados e mais competitivos para o enfrentamento dos desafios do nosso tempo. A promoção de alianças regionais e internacionais solidárias para o fortalecimento dos nossos partidos e que nos permitam enfrentar coletivamente as ingerências externas e impulsionar o desenvolvimento sustentável dos nossos países. Desenvolver centros regionais de comunicação digital para formação e capacitação em marketing político, pois, como sabemos, hoje as redes sociais são uma importante ferramenta para o combate político. Continuar a dinamizar as nossas organizações sociais, principalmente aquelas direcionadas às mulheres e aos jovens, pois são dois segmentos imprescindíveis para a manutenção dos nossos partidos, assim como para o desenvolvimento dos nossos países. Desenvolver fóruns regionais para estudos políticos, econômicos e sociais que nos deem a fotografia real dos efeitos da nossa ação política, permitindo a identificação de pontos fortes e pontos fracos na nossa atividade diária. Isto permitirá aos nossos partidos políticos uma performance mais direcionada e mais assertiva. Excelências, caros camaradas, a presente cimeira oferece-nos, por isso, mais do que um espaço de análise, a oportunidade de reafirmarmos a nossa unidade, a troca de experiências e a renovação de compromissos em prol dos ideais pelos quais os nossos povos tanto lutaram. O MPLA reitera, assim, a sua total disponibilidade para continuarmos a trabalhar com todos os partidos irmãos aqui representados na construção de projetos comuns, de soluções inovadoras e solidárias para os desafios do presente e do futuro. A hora é agora. O momento exige de nós uma introspeção honesta, com renovação dos nossos métodos de ação e a coragem para enfrentarmos os desafios com a mesma determinação com que enfrentamos o colonialismo e o apartheid. Que esta cimeira seja, pois, um marco de renovação e de reforço da nossa unidade, que possamos sair daqui mais fortes, mais coesos e mais preparados para honrar as conquistas do passado, assumindo as responsabilidades do presente e enfrentarmos as demandas do futuro. Juntos por uma África melhor para todos os seus filhos e filhas. Vivam os movimentos de libertação de África. A luta, a luta, a luta, a vitória, a vitória. Muito obrigada.
Thank you, Comrade Mara. We trust that you will travel well back to Angola, and pass our regards to the President, who could not be with us because of pressing commitments. We now invite to the podium the head of delegation from Chama Pendus, Comrade Mizengo Kayanza Pinda, who will render a message on behalf of President Samia Suluhu Hassan, the former Prime Minister and a member of the Central Executive Committee of Chama Pendus.
His Excellency Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, President of the ANC and the Republic of South Africa, His Excellency Dr. Emerson Mnangagwa, President and First Secretary of ZANU-PF and President of the Republic of Zimbabwe, His Excellency Daniel Francisco Chapo, President of Frelimo and the Republic of Mozambique, His Excellency, Her Excellency, Dr. Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, President of Chapo Party and the Republic of Namibia, Comrade Mara Kiosa, Deputy President of MPLA Angola, leadership of ANC, Frelimo, SWAPO, ZANU-PF, and CCM present here, distinguished delegates from observer sister parties, esteemed delegates from observer organizations, Your Excellencies, ambassadors and high commissioners here present, Comrade David Mukura, chairperson of the governing board of Mwalimu Julius Nyerere Leadership School, members of the media and press fraternity, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies and dear comrades, it is with great honor and privilege that I stand before you to deliver remarks at this Liberation Movement Summit on behalf of Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania and the chairperson of CCM, Chama cha Mapinduzi. Allow me to extend Comrade Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan's warmest greetings to Your Excellencies, distinguished leaders, and delegates gathered here today from across our region and beyond to reflect and discuss matters of mutual interest for our parties and the people. On behalf of Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, I also wish to extend profound gratitude to Your Excellency, the President and Comrade Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa, and the other comrades from the African National Congress for organizing and hosting this summit. Your tireless efforts and work have resulted into a gracious hospitality and preparations of this successful event, which has reunited comrades and delegates across the region, the African continent, and beyond. Congratulations to all. Brothers and sisters, before I proceed with these remarks, allow me to take a solemn moment to pay tribute to our fellow comrades, brothers and sisters, who have passed on, including His Excellency, Dr. Sam Shafishuna Nujoma, the founding president of SWAPO and the former president of the Republic of Namibia, His Excellency David Dabede Mabuza, the former deputy president of the Republic of South Africa and former ANC deputy president. These leaders and many more who are no longer here with us were deeply committed to the ideas of Pan-Africanism and the liberation of Africa from all forms of colonization and oppression. Their wisdom and contributions to the cause of liberation will never be forgotten. May their souls rest in eternal peace. Your Excellencies and dear comrades, I wish to express our congratulations to ANC, Frelimo, and SWAPO for conducting successful general elections in their respective countries. On a special note, I wish to congratulate Her Excellency Dr. Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah for her election as the first female president in the Republic of Namibia. Her Excellency Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, President of the United Republic of Tanzania and the chairman of CCM, avails herself of this opportunity to assure CCM's continuous support in defense of the liberation gains, advancing integrated socio-economic development, and strengthening solidarity in Africa. Dear comrades, I once again wish to commend the organizers for selecting the theme, defending the liberation gains, advancing integrated socio-economic development, strengthening solidarity for a better Africa, as it emphasizes our common aspiration for socio-economic advancement and the welfare of our people. The theme reflects the need for the liberation movements to remain relevant in the 21st century by adapting and evolving according to the demands of our times, while maintaining organizational discipline, ideological clarity, governance competence, and a deep responsiveness to the needs of our people. This summit has brought us together to discuss the future of parties for our region, our continent, and the world at large. Your Excellencies and dear comrades, during this summit, we discussed various relevant issues worth of our attention and the ways through which some of our core challenges can be addressed for the betterment of our people. These are matters that not only shape the effectiveness of our parties, but also define the future of political leadership and the governance across the region. It is therefore important that we approach them with a shared commitment to reflection, learning, and practical solutions. Comrades, allow me to reiterate that successful summits like this gives the liberation movement parties an opportunity to reflect, promote, sustain, and foster greater collaboration among our sister parties. Therefore, our parties in solidarity require more events like this summit to strengthen collective action for regional stability as well as prosperity. In this regard, there is a need to establish more joint programs in governance, economic policy, and grassroots mobilization, and thereby continue to remain vigilant, steadfast, and committed to the ideals that brought us together in the first place, namely the political unity and economic emancipation of Africa. Your Excellencies and dear comrades, as we cherish the success of our political independence, many of our nations still remain economically dependent. As we all know, true independence is about being able to control our economies, resources, and production systems. In that regard, our parties must be at the forefront of economic transformation. In addition, there is a need to continue prioritizing industrialization, job creation, and the wealth distribution that will benefit our nations. Economic independence must remain at the core of our political agenda. Excellencies and dear comrades, for our parties to achieve political unity, we must deliberately cultivate it. This requires a continuous process of political education, ideological grounding, and leadership renewal. We must therefore return to the basics: clarity of vision, adherence to core principles, and a strong sense of collective responsibility. We should take full use of our party schools in our respective countries and our joint school, the Mwalimu Julius Nyerere Leadership School in Tanzania, to train party cadres and government leaders. Additionally, our parties must ensure that leadership transitions are based on merit, commitment to the party's ideology, and the ability to serve the people. Our struggle for independence and self-determination was a success, thanks to the solidarity and the unity in the region, continent, and beyond. Our cause attracted support from international friends who shared their moral and material support. These are, for example, China, Algeria, Russia, Sahrawi, Cuba, to mention a few. And we are glad that among these who have been mentioned, some of them are with us here in the summit. We are grateful for their unwavering support. Therefore, we must strengthen intra-Africa solidarity. A divided Africa is a weak Africa. If our parties do not stand together, foreign interests will continue to exploit our divisions. Our liberation movements must therefore revive the Pan-African vision that our forefathers fought for. Excellencies and dear comrades, as I conclude, I appeal to you, dear Excellencies and delegates, that we should continue to honor the sacrifices and the legacies of our forefathers by renewing our commitment to the principles that define us. Let us in all capacities commit to the renewal of our parties so that they remain strong, united, and relevant for current and generations to come. Aluta, Aluta, Amandla. Thank you, asanteni sana. And Your Excellencies, before I leave the podium, let me just say that we came with a small present from Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan for His Excellency President Ramaphosa, but it will go through the normal channels through the protocol office and probably finally reach His Excellency. Having said that, I say thank you so much for taking time to listen to some of us who did not deserve to be listened to. Asanteni sana.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies and comrades. Let us now call upon the President of SWAPO and President of the Republic of Namibia, Comrade President Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, SWAPO and Namibia's first woman president. President Nandi-Ndaitwah joined SWAPO's ranks at the tender age of 14. She led SWAPO's youth movement and dedicated her life to fighting apartheid South Africa's occupation of her country. Comrade President.
Thank you, Comrade Secretary General and our Director of Ceremonies for the floor. Your Excellency, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, President of the ANC and the Republic of South Africa, and our host. Your Excellencies, comrades, presidents of the parties in Southern Africa, the former liberation movements. Your Excellencies, comrades, former presidents of the parties in Southern Africa who are present here today. Your Excellencies, comrades, head of the delegation of the sister parties, comrades, secretary generals of former liberation movements, dear delegates to the summit, members of the diplomatic corps, invited guests, fellow comrades and friends. I bring you fraternal greetings and best wishes from the leadership, the rank and file membership of SWAPO Party. I equally express on behalf of SWAPO Party and the people of Namibia our profound and heartfelt appreciation for the solidarity received from sister parties and your national governments during the passing of our third president, Comrade Hage G. Geingob, on the 4th February 2024, and our founding president, father of the Namibian nation, and the leader for our revolution, Comrade Sam Safishuna Nujoma, who left us on the 8th February 2025. Your revolutionary support has indeed carried us as a nation during the dark periods of our national bereavement. Comrade Director of Ceremony, let me thank His Excellency Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, President of the ANC and the Republic of South Africa, for hosting this historical summit and for the hospitality accorded to our delegation since arrival in Johannesburg. Comrades, we are here today inspired by our shared history and commitment to the ideals of freedom and justice that have united us in the past and continue to guide our collective journey towards an Africa free from oppression, inequality, and discord, the Africa we want. Nevertheless, to remind ourselves that ours are national liberation movements that emerge across our continent, fought against colonialism, apartheid, and oppression, carving the path towards freedom and self-determination. While we have achieved our political freedom and independence, we are remembered of the plight of the people of Western Sahara and Palestine to exercise their right to self-determination, sovereignty, and freedom. I reiterate the SWAPO Party's strong solidarity with their respective causes and demand for an urgent international action to respond positively to ending the suffering and the injustice meted out against the people of Western Sahara and Palestine. SWAPO Party also wish to extend revolutionary greetings to our historical allies, the liberation struggle. We are talking about the National Liberation Front of Algeria, the Communist Party of China, the Communist Party of Cuba, the Communist Party of the Russian Federation, and the United Russia Party, the United Solidarity of Venezuela, and the Sandinist National Liberation Front of Nicaragua, and all those who stood with us during our fight for political independence. We assure our Cuban comrades of our consistent support and call for the total removal of unjustifiable economic embargo by the United States. Director of Ceremony, dear comrades, the theme of the Liberation Movement Summit 2025, namely defending liberation gains, advancing integrated socio-economic development, and strengthening solidarity for a better Africa. This is a well-crafted and thought theme that is aimed to serve not only as a rallying call, but also as a roadmap to our collective future. In our sub-region, we must remain vigilant in defending and safeguarding the significant gains we have made through the sacrifice of our countless heroes and heroines of our struggle. The freedom we enjoy today is as much about the political independence of our nation as it is about just social justice, equality, and human rights for all our people. I believe that in preparing this summit, our Secretary Generals and their supporting staff have taken a deeper analysis of the situation at hand. And having listened to the recap, I can only say congratulations to you we need to do things differently and better in order to get different and better results. And that is exactly what I got from the recap received this morning. Director of Ceremonies, there are concerted efforts by those who opposed to our independence, who are being guided by their selfish, who are hiding themselves in the economic, political, and diplomatic conspiracy to undermine the gains of our revolution. They are motivated, as we are all aware, by both domestic and foreign policy interests, and actively seeking to undermine the political dominancy of our liberation parties with the long-term objectives of weakening and unseating us from power altogether. Their target is always our youth, who are the majority in our countries, who are the majority voters in our countries. And that's where we have to pay attention to make sure that our young people, they remain focused, they remain vigilant in order to defend and protect our revolution. The outcomes of most of our recent elections in our respective countries are a clear warnings that should not be taken very lightly. We have won our elections, but we have noted how we have won. And that's why a summit like this one is very timely, is very critical, and we need to take it very serious for our revolution to remain for the current and future generation. This is particularly true for the liberation movements in Southern Africa, namely the ANC in South Africa, MPLA in Angola, ZANU-PF in Zimbabwe, Frelimo in Mozambique, and SWAPO Party in Namibia, who were critically in the liquidation of the colonialism and apartheid. Others in the region and elsewhere in Africa, we all know what had happened to them, that they are becoming part of the history, which is really regrettable. And all is now in our hands not to allow this situation to continue in Southern Africa and in Africa. Our resoluteness has burst the ego of the former occupying power as colonial masters, who seek to avenge the humiliation they suffered from African national liberation movement. We should continue, comrades, to relentlessly uphold the historical legacy of the armed struggle for national liberation of the people of Southern Africa. For the SWAPO Party, the Liberation Movement Summit 2025, we believe it grants us an opportunity to reaffirm our resolve to defend the hard-won gains of our national liberation, advance integrated socio-economic development, and strengthen Pan-African unity in the face of escalating global challenges. Director of Ceremonies, it's imperative that our sister parties, ANC, MPLA, Frelimo, ZANU-PF, SWAPO Party, and CCM advance regional collaboration so as to ensure our collective efforts serving the true interest of our people. SWAPO Party stands ready in our commitment to the enduring principle of international solidarity that has sustained the historical struggle of Southern Africa's liberation movement. It's indeed our resolve to deepen this sisterhood bond by blood, to counter the racing forces of right-wing racism, new colonialism, economic exploitation, and economic blockade that threaten our very sovereignty and progress. Today, unlike in the past, we face complex and unprecedented challenges, including socio-economic inequality, high youth unemployment, migration pressure, and the rise of populist and reactionary forces, all intensified by a global scramble of Africa's critical resources, including Namibia's vast mineral wealth. We condemn in the strongest terms the imperialist ambitions demonstrated by policies that seek to divide Africa and exploit its resources for artificial intelligence, digital technology, and green energy. SWAPO Party rejects this unpopular agenda and recommits to multipolar world order rooted in Pan-Africanism, anti-imperialist, and international solidarity, underscoring South-South cooperation. Thus, our first task is to forge a united front, reinforcing that liberation is not an end point, but an ongoing process that requires our sustainable commitment, vigilance, and activism. Our strength lies not only in resisting external threat, but in our ability to hold each other's hands and hold one another accountable as sister parties. Accountability is the cornerstone of our legitimacy and the trust of our people, or our people have placed on us. We must challenge each other to deliver governance that prioritizes the needs of our citizens, tackling unemployment, ensuring equitable resource distribution, and addressing the inspiration of our youth, women, and indigenous minority. We must, as a region, fight corruption. It's a cancer that, if allowed to grow, it is going to bury our revolution. The growing disconnect between our movements and the young generations, coupled with the fragmentation of women issue and minority representation, demands that we critically assess our policies and practices. We should redouble our efforts to address socio-economic challenges and empowerment of these constituencies. Furthermore, comrades, we should devise effective strategies to engage and communicate with our youth to attain a positive impact on their lives and realize momentum gains of our parties. By holding each other to the highest standard of transparency, inclusivity, and effectiveness, we will ensure that our liberation legacy translates into tangible benefit for our people, from quality education and health care to economic opportunities and social justice, whereby we'll be able to close any gap which our opponents might want to use to divide or to take our people from us. SWAPO party calls for a strategic unit among sister parties who have played a significant role in the liberation of Southern Africa. We must confront the rise of the foreign-funded civil society organizations, NGOs, and economic welfares through sanctions and unjustifiable tariff with a unified front. We must share with each other strategies on confronting the civil cause for regime change in our respective countries by some foreign forces through opposition parties and civil societies in our countries. This summit, comrades, must forge a cohesive strategy for a coordinated migration management, equitable socio-economic development, and the protection of our natural resources. We need to commit to building international alliances to amplify our forces and resist exploitation while remaining true to the principle of human rights, peaceful conflict resolution, and multilateralism. Comrades, the time for the revolution renewal has come. SWAPO party pledge to work hand in hand with our sister parties in our quest to deliver a Southern Africa and Africa where the gains of our liberation benefit our people. Together, we will honor the sacrifice of our forefathers, confronting the present challenges, and build a future where Southern Africa and Africa stands as a beacon of freedom, justice, and solidarity for the global South. As I conclude, comrades, we are gathered here in Johannesburg. Let us defend the gains of liberation with unwavering resolve, prioritizing the integrated economic development and our shared mission, and strengthen the bonds of solidarity that will pave the way for a better Africa, as put in our theme. Together, we have the power to forge an equitable and a prosperous future for our political parties and our nations. Let us lead with courage, vision, and a deep sense of responsibility to the generations that will come after us. The time for action is now. Let us move forward together with dignity, purpose, and unity. Aluta! Aluta! A Victoria! A Victoria! We cannot just be in the struggle and we do not become victorious. Thank you very much.
You strike a woman, you strike the rock. Watinda bafazi, watinda imbokodo. Uzakufa. Finish and clear. Comrades, Your Excellencies and comrades, we now call upon Comrade President Emmerson Mnangagwa, President of the Republic of Zimbabwe and First Secretary of ZANU-PF. Third President of Zimbabwe, President Mnangagwa, joined the Zimbabwean African Liberation Army, the military wing of ZANU, at the tender age of 21. He has held a series of senior posts in the government of an independent Zimbabwe and became First Secretary of ZANU-PF in 2017. Comrade President.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Africa, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Mozambique, Comrade Daniel Chapo, Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Namibia, Comrade Nandi-Ndaitwah, representatives of other sister political parties and liberation movements who are here, Secretary Generals who are present, chairpersons of the Veterans, Women and Youth Leagues of various parties who are here, comrades and friends. May I begin by congratulating our sister liberation movement of the ANC and you, Your Excellency, the President of the ANC and the Republic of South Africa, Comrade Cyril Ramaphosa, for convening this timely summit of our liberation movements. The well-considered theme of our summit, and I quote, defending the liberation gains, advancing integrated socio-economic development, strengthening solidarity for a better Africa, end of quote. This encapsulates the duty and responsibility before us all today. Allow me to further express gratitude for the generous hospitality extended to me and my delegation since our arrival here in the Republic of South Africa. Your Excellencies, since the last summit of former liberation movements, our region has lost many distinguished veterans of our liberation struggle who fought and sacrificed their lives for the independence, the freedom and democracy we all enjoy today. Their selfless dedication and unwavering commitment to the liberation of the region and the continent as a whole will remain etched in our collective memory for generations to come. May their departed souls continue to rest in eternal peace. Your Excellencies and fellow comrades, in March 2024, ZANU-PF hosted the meetings of the leagues of our parties, wherein calls on the need to jealously guard, protect and promote the revolutionary agenda were loud and very emphatic. This session of summit presents us with another opportunity to review our experiences while also consolidating our shared ideals, principles and aspirations for the prosperity of our peoples. The mission before us, as stated in our summit theme, is an urgent imperative. Counter-revolutionary forces have doubled up antics to divide and fragment our movements. They are unrelenting in their nefarious quest to obliterate the liberation of movements from the political radar of our region. However, we must remain emboldened by our rich liberation history, which is our greatest teacher. The millions of people who look to liberation movements with hope for a better tomorrow should be a source of inspiration for us. Our democracy, freedom, and independence did not come on a silver platter. The infrastructure that denied us democracy and independence has muted and expresses itself in numerous forms. These include through interference in the internal affairs of our parties and governments, sabotage of our economies, and at West, covert support of conflict and war in our jurisdictions. We cannot be complacent. Robust and fluid strategies are necessary to guarantee the perpetuity of our people-centered governance. We defeated them in the past, and we shall defeat them again and again and again in future. Through our unity and unbreakable solidarity, victory is and shall remain certain. Our synergies and collaboration must be bold and purposeful, while the exchange of ideas and perspectives among our parties should be responsive and honest to the realities we face. We are people-centered. Colossal revolutionary mass parties. In honor of the many departed gallant sons and daughters of our region who fought against colonialism, apartheid, and oppression, we can never give up. We have a sacred duty and responsibility to retain power for the purpose of advancing the people's agenda. This is what our heroes fought for. We should never allow ourselves to lose power. We must look into the future with confidence and optimism, with the people and our countries being masters of our own destinies under the banner of our liberation movements. Deliberate support for production and productivity, as well as sustainable enterprises, are key cogs towards propelling the diversification and growth of our respective economies and countries. The modernization and industrialization agenda, particularly among rural communities, is a responsibility deserving our focus, my dear comrades. Transformational policies, programs, and projects are essential in this regard. In the case of Zimbabwe, our ZANU-PF government is drilling balls in each of the 35,000 villages and establishing an agro-based community-managed village business unity of the 35,000 villages. These are mitigating the impact of climate change, guaranteeing household food security, providing throughout horticulture exports, and ultimately improving rural incomes. The fruits of our independence and freedom translated to affordable education, health care, transport, clean water, and sanitation, among other basic social services. Let us not shy away from looking at new financing models and partnerships to deliver on our mandates. The education sector should be the bedrock upon which we advance innovation, science and technological development, towards meeting the needs of our economies and our people. Audacious policy frameworks and government procurement quotas are crucial to accelerate the growth of startups, innovation and inventions by our talented young people. Similarly, the youth and women are vital to the growth of all sectors of the economy, including in the mining, agriculture, infrastructure development, and tourism, among others. In our case, ZANU-PF has adopted strategies to empower the youth, not only through issuance of mining claims, but also with equipment, so that they participate in the mining value chains. In the agriculture sector, mechanization programs targeted at the youth have proved a transformational empowerment tool towards increased agriculture productivity among our young farmers. Youth and women-led consortiums are participating in infrastructure development in both urban and the rural areas. ZANU-PF is also implementing numerous projects aimed at enhancing the welfare and income base of the veterans of the liberation struggle. At a macroeconomic level, the multi-pronged policy reforms adopted by our ZANU-PF government have seen stability and GDP growth expected to around 6% this year, to be around 6% this year. In honor of our founding fathers and in the true spirit of Pan-Africanism and the regional integration, let us do more to promote trade among our countries. My dear comrades, the strategies we deployed to keep the grassroots galvanized in our fight against colonialism and oppression must never be forgotten. The correct line of the revolution remains our guiding beacon. Our rich liberation heritage should be harnessed by today's youthful and tech-savvy generation to grow our party membership base. Leveraging on our political party schools and leadership institutions, deliberate efforts to nurture politically conscious young people and cadres who have knowledge and an understanding of our history, ideology, and the value systems should be scaled up. We should not allow our young people to invent themselves. The legacy of luminaries and veterans of our movements, along with our rich liberation heritage, must be kept alive, immortalized, and memorialized. In this spirit, Zimbabwe is grateful to Angola, Mozambique, Tanzania, and Zambia for their part and facilitation of my government's program to rehabilitate liberation war heritage sites within their jurisdictions. Similarly, Zimbabwe continues to support South Africa in its ongoing repatriation program of departed liberation luminaries who fell during the struggle and were buried in Zimbabwe. We shall cooperate. My dear comrades, united we stand, and divided we fall. Unity, cooperation, and solidarity amongst ourselves as liberation parties must realize maximum benefits. To achieve this, it is critically important that we address contradictions within our respective parties and overall body politic. Divergent views and strategies need not cause fractures detrimental to the revolution. Our colossal movements must remain bigger than individuals in the party. While the invisible ends are apparent, we should, as independent Pan-Africanists, close ranks in pursuit of common goals to develop our countries. Let us set aside all forms of differences and confront our challenges head-on while maintaining the integrity and the correct line of our revolutionary parties. We are one, sharing common values and ideas. Those who seek to foist their nefarious and foreign agendas in our region must be exposed and denounced without shame. Your Excellencies and dear comrades, multilateralism and the rules-based international order, as embodied in the United Nations Charter, remains the sustainable guarantor of the principle of equality of nations. This summit, my dear brothers and sisters, therefore, presents us with an opportunity to revive our Pan-African ideals of unity, African solutions to African problems. We should not borrow solutions from elsewhere. Non-aggression, peaceful coexistence, South-South cooperation. That's our song. ZANU-PF is unwavering in his solidarity with the people of the Sahrawi and Palestine. We call for peace in Gaza and the West Bank, as well as the redress of the dire humanitarian crisis in that region. We condemn unilateral coercive measures and the so-called targeted sanctions deployed as a foreign policy tool. In this spirit, ZANU-PF is appreciative of the support, solidarity, and unequivocal calls from sister liberation movements towards the unconditional lifting of illegal sanctions imposed on Zimbabwe. Once again, congratulate the ANC for hosting this successful summit. The assignment before us, comrades, that of protecting our rich liberation legacy while pursuing shared prosperity of our peoples, is dependent on stability and security in our countries and the region at large. The responsibility and the duty to build brighter and more prosperous countries for the next generation lies with us, liberation movements. Let us therefore bravely and apologetically reassert and recommit ourselves to defending our founding values, defending our independence, our sovereignty, our freedom and our democracy and our equality without apology. We are the only tried, trusted, and dependable drivers of socio-economic justice for Africa. development and regional stability. The people's power shall always remain firmly secure under the governments of liberation movements. This is my view. Forward forever, backward never. Luta continua, victory is certain. Long live our revolution. Long live our unity, freedom and independence. Amandla. Thank you.
Thank you, Comrade President. Excellencies, comrades, it now gives me a great honor and joy to welcome to the podium the President of the ANC, our host, and President of the Republic of South Africa, Comrade Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa. At the age of 22, President Ramaphosa was arrested and spent 11 months in solitary confinement for organizing pro-Frelimo rallies. A trade unionist, Comrade President Ramaphosa was elected Secretary General of the ANC in 1991 and elected President of the African National Congress in 2018 up until today. Comrade President.
Thank you, Program Director, Secretary General of the African National Congress, Comrade Fikile Mbalula, Comrade Emmerson Mnangagwa, First Secretary of ZANU-PF and the President of Zimbabwe, Comrade Daniel Chapo, President of Frelimo, and President of the Republic of Mozambique, Comrade Netumbo Nandi-Ndaitwah, President of SWAPO and President of the Republic of Namibia, Comrade Mara Baptista Kiosa, Deputy President of MPLA, Comrade Mizengo Kanyaza Pinda, Member of the Central Committee of Chama Pinduzi and leader of the delegation from CCM, former President Thabo Mbeki, Secretaries General of the ANC, MPLA, SWAPO, Frelimo, ZANU-PF, and CCM, and leaders and representatives of our liberation movements, youth and women's leagues of our liberation movements, elders and veterans, invited leaders and representatives from fraternal parties, members of the diplomatic corps, delegates, and of course, members of the media. It is with a great deal of honor, revolutionary pride, and heartfelt gratitude that I greet you all on behalf of the African National Congress, the host of this summit, and the people of South Africa. The Liberation Movement Summit is more than a conference. It is what one would call a homecoming. It is a convocation of liberation movements rooted in shared histories of struggle bound by a tradition of resistance and united in a future that demands memory, imagination, boldness, and bravery. We are pleased that we are joined by fraternal organizations and parties from across the world who share the goals of liberation and freedom from oppression. Together, our movements were forged in the cauldrons of anti-apartheid and anti-colonial struggle. And today, together, we must be forged anew in the fire of a new struggle. The struggle for social and economic justice for our people, regional unity, integration and sovereignty in an increasingly hostile global order. We gather this year on the 64th anniversary of the independence of Tanzania, the 50th anniversary of the independence of Angola and Mozambique, the 45th anniversary of the independence of Zimbabwe, and the 35th anniversary of the independence of Namibia. It is a moment not just for celebration, but it is also a moment for critical reflection. We must honor the memories of our founding giants, Julius Nyerere, Eduardo Mondlane, Samora Machel, Agostinho Neto, Sam Nujoma, Robert Mugabe, Joshua Nkomo, Kenneth Kaunda, Oliver Tambo, Nelson Mandela, and many others. Their vision, courage, boldness, bravery, as well as sacrifice, laid the foundations of a free Southern Africa that we live in today. We remember with deep reverence the recently departed Comrade Sam Nujoma and Comrade Hage Geingob of Namibia, stalwarts of SWAPO and lifelong warriors for justice, equality, and dignity. We also, here in South Africa, remember recently departed David Dabede Mabuza, President of the Republic of South Africa and the African National Congress. We're also pleased that we have amongst us fraternal parties from across the world. This is what makes this summit so special, so impactful. We welcome the Communist Party of China, the Polisario Front from the Sahrawi Republic, Fatah from Palestine, the FLN of Algeria, United Russia, the BNF of Botswana, the Sandinistas of Nicaragua, and the PAC of Azania, as well as other continental organizations that are here represented, and other parties that I may not have mentioned. But more importantly, continental organizations like the Pan-African Women's Organization, party political schools that are here represented, youth, women, and veterans leagues of our various movements. Even as we remember our victories, we must confront a hard truth. Our liberation movements are under siege from within and without. Most of our movements are having to contend with declining electoral support, shifting demographics, frustrated young people in our various countries, economic inequality, and foreign interference. These trends speak to a deeper crisis, the disconnect between our founding narratives and the lived realities of a new generation of young people. It is a generation that sees and appreciates less of our past victories and more of our present shortcomings. It is a generation that demands jobs, justice, dignity, housing, education, health, and security, and sees our movements as distant, rigid, and slow to adapt. This disconnect amongst the population emboldens the external attacks on our sovereignty, our independence, our development, and security. In fact, there has been ample evidence that international actors use the legitimate grievances of our people to attack progressive governments. We have seen a revival of the forces of unilateralism, neocolonialism, and imperial extraction. There is a renewed offensive against transformation, progressive policies, and multilateralism, and a re-weaponization of global institutions, and a deliberate effort to divide and control Africa through transactional diplomacy and economic coercion. At the heart of this campaign lies a battle for control, not only of our politics through unbridled, persistent attempts for regime change. They also seek to lay claim to our critical and rare minerals they require for both green technology and digital economy and artificial intelligence. They are also in a battle for our data, our land, our people, and our future. This is a new scramble for Africa. But this time it is not only a scramble for territory, it is a scramble for digital, economic, ideological, and ecological scramble. For centuries, our continent has paid the price for rapid industrial development of the global north. Our people were enslaved and subjugated. Our land was occupied and our natural resources were stolen. Today, Africa is paying the environmental price for the prosperity of others. Although the African continent is not responsible for the warming of the planet, it is most vulnerable to its effect. That is neither just nor is it sustainable. Countries in the global north developed on the back of Africa's human capital, on the back of Africa's natural resources and cultural destruction. The price has been centuries of extraction, exploitation, and underdevelopment, whose effects are still felt up till today. As Walter Rodney argued in How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, Europe was developed by means of the same underdevelopment of Africa. To meet present-day challenges, we require urgent, substantial, and sustainable solutions to Africa's challenges. We need to find innovative ways of resolving our problems and challenges. The question we must answer is whether our movements are able to provide the leadership that is required in the world of today and tomorrow. The answer must lie in our ability to transform our movements, our governments, our economies, our societies, and our consciousness. We must recognize that our political independence is incomplete without economic justice. It is incomplete without resolving the question of land. It is incomplete unless we industrialize, we beneficiate, the minerals that are extracted from our land, and we create jobs for our youth. As a region, we must replace the colonial extractive model with regional value chains, anchored in our resources, driven by our young people, and fueled by innovation. This means we must harness the transformative power of the Africa Continental Free Trade Area to advance regional and continental integration. Africa will never prosper for as long as we send all our raw materials abroad and rely on factories far from our shores for the finished goods and the advanced services that we use. Rather than export rock, sand, and soil, we should be exporting finished products that the world needs. We must process, build, and produce all that we need here on the African continent. This calls on us to invest in infrastructure that extends beyond national boundaries, to build a region that is both physically and economically integrated. As liberation movements from across Southern Africa, we are well placed to drive this important effort. We must acknowledge that many of the threats we face are internal. For many of us, corruption and patronage have contributed to various degrees to the destruction of our social fabric, to the weakening of the state, and to the disunity of our movements. The competition for public positions and resources has undermined our ability as liberation movements to adequately respond to the needs of the present moment that our people have. We need to be united in our efforts to rid our societies of corruption and crime, and we need to work together, drawing on each other's experiences, to rebuild and renew our movements. Our movements were built through the struggles of the young people of the time. Today, we must rebuild our movements the same way. The impatience of young people is not something that we should fear. It is to be welcomed because it signals the determination of new generations of citizens to strive for a better life, for a more just society. It is our responsibility as liberation movements to draw on that desire and that energy to undertake a new struggle with youth of our various countries at the forefront. Our youth leagues must not be ceremonial wings of our movements, but they must be engines. There must be engines of ideological clarity, economic innovation, digital activism, and organizational unity and renewal. We support the establishment of the Permanent Youth Secretariat and the Liberation Youth Development Fund, as well as the call for continental political education through our party schools, as well as youth exchanges and policy participation across our region. There can be no freedom without the liberation of women. The achievement of gender equality is a moral, social, and economic imperative. If women do not prosper, society does not prosper. if girls are unable to complete school, if women cannot find decent work or run their own businesses, if they do not receive equal pay for equal work, if they are vulnerable to violence and abuse, then our freedom will not be complete and our societies will remain forever poor. We welcome the comprehensive resolutions in this regard, including on land equity for women, reproductive rights, and the call to mainstream women in leadership, in trade, in learning, and in peace processes. We echo the call to center the Pan-African Women's Organization in our regional agenda and commit to elevating women's voices and leadership in every aspect of our movements, government, and the private sector. One of the most dangerous narratives today is the weaponization of migration. We must reject xenophobia in all its forms. Migration itself must not be seen as a threat. It is a consequence of underdevelopment, war, global inequality, not a moral failing of those who move in search of hope. As liberation movements, we must advocate for people-centered regional migration policies that affirm dignity, rights, and solidarity as well. We must never forget our freedom struggles were international in nature. Our freedom was achieved not only by the tireless struggles of our peoples, but by the efforts of people from across the world. Drawing on that experience, we reaffirm our support for the peoples of Palestine, Western Sahara, and Cuba. We condemn in the strongest terms the crimes against humanity and the genocide committed by the apartheid state of Israel against the people of Palestine. We are particularly horrified by the deliberate starvation of the people of Gaza. We call on the state of Israel to allow food and essential aid to be allowed in and to be distributed amongst the starving Palestinians. We call for an immediate end to the relentless bombardment of civilians and the destruction of their homes, their hospitals, their places of worship. We call on the world to stop the murder of children and babies through starvation. Our position remains very clear. Liberation is indivisible. We are not truly free until all are free. This summit should be a turning point on the important issues of principles that we hold dear. We must institutionalize mechanisms for mutual accountability amongst our movements. We must find and hold each other to higher standards, not only out of competition, but out of love, duty, and historical necessity. If we are not robust and frank in our self-criticism and introspection, we will not be able to renew and adapt to a rapidly changing balance of forces. We will not be able to ensure that our future survival is sustainable. Going forward, we must establish a framework for deeper inter-party collaboration across governance, socio-economic transformation, and ideological education as well. We should champion the vision of a multipolar, multicultural, equitable, inclusive, and a just world order. We should demand reform of the political and economic global governance institutions and the end of unilateral sanctions and the creation of a just global governance system rooted in dignity and in fairness. Working with like-minded forces across the world, we must be the architects of the new world order that we seek. History demands that we don't allow our legacies to be buried under the rubble of revolutionary nostalgia. We must ensure our relevance through bold action that we must take. We are the custodians of Africa's unfinished revolution. History requires that we become the builders of a new tomorrow. We should return to our countries, to our parties, to our people, with a clarity and unity of purpose, leading with courage, with integrity, and with humility. We should build an Africa where every woman, every man and child can live with dignity, thrive in peace, and realize the dreams for which so many have died. We need to reaffirm that there shall be peace and friendship, that there shall be houses and security and comfort for all, as set out in our Freedom Charter, adopted in 1955, 70 years ago, here in South Africa. Let us not only defend the gains of liberation, we should build on what we have achieved, and we have achieved a great deal, even as our detractors seek to downplay the achievements that were brought about by our liberation movements. Let us realize the hopes and the aspirations of our people as we move together in unison as liberation movements, seeking to achieve the objectives that were set out by our forebears when they established our movement, to attain our independence and our freedom against apartheid and against colonialism. This is the hour and the moment that we need to regain our strength and move forward, renewed and reinvigorated, forever moving forward, as we all in unison say, Aluta continua. Amandla. Amandla. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Comrade President. Excellencies, Comrade Secretaries General, delegates, we are now going to have a Q&A, and we'll reduce it to 1